So I am born and raised in Colorado, and I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher, but then in college somewhere I thought maybe I wanted to go into the business world. And so I did that for a while, and it was just really hard to not have your heart in it. And so I came up with an opportunity through DEO. They had the Better Teachers program, and they were working with underserved students. So I really was drawn to that because I was always a struggling learner. I had an IEP because of some reading difficulties. And so I always loved that idea of how education can get you through anything. That if you work really hard, you can overcome everything. So I applied for the program and got in, and I started working in Title I schools. And I was working in Aurora, and my husband and I chose to move. And I was really excited to work in Greeley because the students in Greeley are different than any other group that I've ever worked with. They're sweeter, and they have, I don't know, they just they bring so much to the table. And so I've just really enjoyed my time here. And it's almost like it's where I've always belonged. I remember in 5th grade they had, so down over by Cherry Creek Mall, they have a bank, and then they have like a small town in it, and then they had job interviews, and I interviewed to be a teacher. And I'm the oldest grandchild and the oldest child, obviously, and I was always taking care of kids. I was always working with kids, and I just really knew that was my passion, was to work in a way. But what I found was that my passion was to work with students that are really, really, really bright, but they just need someone to believe in them. And so that led me to ESL or CLD or whatever you call it. And so I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher, but I always knew that I also wanted to work with the group of students that I currently work with. So my mom was a teacher, and one of the things that I was apprehensive about was just the amount of work that you take home. And just, I was saying, well, maybe I'll go into the business world because you can leave it. You can leave your job out, when you leave. And I tried that. My dad owns a business, and it's in its 5th generation, and I really thought that that's where I belonged. But then as soon as I got there, I just realized that I was making such a little impact on the people around me that I needed a change. Like, my heart was not in it, and that I needed to work in a place where I felt like I was making a lasting impact. I think I have the same drive that my mom has, and I had to find that my way is good enough, and that part of teaching is an art, and you need to figure out how your talents best meet your students' needs. And so having my mom be that example has been something that has showed me just how you're always learning, you're always growing, you're always doing something new. And my mom and I are different people, but she definitely is my confidant, and she definitely is who I aspire to be. I mean, she's been retired for 8 years, and she just went to a graduation party because she's made that big of an impact on the students. And so I aspire to be like her. Like my mother, I'm all or nothing. Like, that's just how I am. I don't do anything halfway. And when it comes to teaching, as much as I would like to leave it at school, like, I can't. These kids are what I talk about, at home. They're what I think about. And so we're very similar in that we take it on head on. So I teach CLD. So what CLD is it's working with students who, like I said, or I say to my students every year, are smarter than me. I do not speak Spanish, and then the Spanish that I do speak is terrible. But I tell my students every day that if they apply for my job, they would be the ones to be here. So with that, if someone who spoke Spanish and was bilingual applied to be in my position, they would have the job and I would not. And so I tell my students that they're coming with an advantage. But part of that is that I need to hold my language learners to a higher standard than any other student. So my job is to sit beside them and make sure that they are truly literate in both languages, that they have solidified the nuances of language. And so with a lot of the ELL population, they'll read a passage and they will get the gist level. And my job is to help them get the sentence and the phrase and those tiny differences in language that are often missed and really focus in on those. So it's the process, whereas other classes are product-based. We are focusing in on the little tiny pieces of language versus on you need to know these dates and the effects that they had on history. You're focusing in on how does the author use sequence language and how can I break that down for my students so that they truly understand what initially means, and that initially is talking about a big change, so that they are more proficient in their classes. I mean, we need bilingual doctors, lawyers, everything. Bilingualism is the way that we need to go, And so when I see my students succeed, it just makes it so much easier to come to work the next day. And then when you think back and you remember how far your students grew the year before, and then you're sitting there feeling kind of weighed down or like the students aren't getting it, it gives you that sense of purpose, remembering how far they grew the last year or where they came from, and it's just really empowering. So at my old district, I was in a leadership role. Half-time I would coach, and I like that, but I love the kids. I don't think I would go back to doing that. I just love working with the students. And for me, going and getting more professional development, maybe running some professional development, being part of teachers building teachers, but I would never want to leave the classroom. It's where my heart is, I'm in the business of supporting my students to become the best version of themselves. And so I really see myself more as that coach and that person that stands beside them. So I think about change, and then I think about how I teach. And I see that my core belief is that every student is capable, and not even student, every person is capable, and every person has talent inside of them that needs to be discovered. And as a teacher, my job is to have my students walk away with a sense of, wow, Miss Zetye really loves me and believes in me, even when I don't believe in myself. I think a good day is where I feel like the students are engaged, that they get it, that it's slightly, whatever my learning target is, slightly above where they're at. And at the beginning of the class, I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, they don't get it. And by the end, I look at their exit tickets and I'm like, oh, they got it. And that is a good day where I feel like I've challenged them, but that they've had some success.